So let's clone it from GitHub, usual way. Go to code, copy. Now stop this from running because the same issue, we cannot run two projects on the same port. So stop it. I will close it. I don't want to use it, so I close it. And I'm getting project from version control, Control V. So Control V, and I want to get it in this. Okay. So as usual, when you clone project, make sure that you are creating folder for it. Otherwise, it will mix stuff with other folder. Okay. Are you with me? I'm cloning card2 project. Random card2. Clone. And cloning is slightly different from creating this from scratch because at some point it will ask you to run command. So trust project. Just wait. And you see it is asking you to run command npm install. When you clone Angular project, do so. Okay, there are two ways to run this command. One, it is click this button, but if you accidentally or by mistake close this window, don't worry. You can open terminal and type npm install, press enter, it will do the same. Okay. So again, after cloning Angular project, if this window pops up, you click npm install. If you accidentally close it, don't worry, open terminal and type npm install and press enter. So I'm going the simplest. I'll click this box. So it cloned project. Now it is downloading things from downloading libraries. And when you clone project created before, at this moment, it may complain, like some library contains some vulnerability, like it's not safe anymore. In this case, it's fine, because I refreshed that library yesterday. But if it complains, don't get alarmed. It's not the end of the story. It will tell you how to deal with it. The easiest way to deal with it, first run npm update, enter. It will update libraries. In most cases, like 99%, it will resolve the issue. npm space update, it will update libraries. If doesn't help, it will tell you what to do. Type npm audit fix. npm space audit space fix. After npm update, it should help. If it just tell you run npm audit fix, don't do it right away. First update it. Okay. First run npm update. So this is how to deal with it. Let's browse the code and see what we have. In the source, I have app folder. In app folder, I have a footer. This footer is not called my footer. It means when I created this, I typed just word footer instead of my footer. In the previous project, I typed my-footer to show how to separate words. In this case, I don't have such task to show how to separate words. You already know. So this is why I typed just footer. There is no special separate header, although we can create it. If we open app component HTML, you will see that header is just part of it. I didn't move it inside of a separate component. As you see, code layout is quite simple. So several lines of code, and there's something inside the footer. If you compare current footer with previous footer, you see that I'm providing parameter to the footer. It's probably some name to be shown inside of the footer. Okay? So this project contains several additional pieces of theory. One piece is how to pass data to components that you create to make it more reusable. In this case, I am passing string. So if you pass string, you just assign it to a variable name inside of that mentioned as input inside of that component. So if you go to the footer, code, footer component yes, you will see that some variable, it is variable name, its match assignment, is marked with at input. Okay? So you pass this string as input to be assigned here. If you do not pass it, it will use default Sheridan College. So I assign it applied computing, so it will use applied computing. Okay? So this is to use it as input of a tag, at input. All right. Next, this is a public instance variable, so I can refer to this inside of layout of a footer. So if I open layout of a footer, you see that name is inserted here. So applied computing, it will be the first word inside of the footer. After this, this is heart symbol, like shape heart. And class heart is making this in red. So if I open CSS, you will see that this is just color red. Okay. So inside of the footer, I will have this name, replace it with, replace it with applied computing, right? Heart symbol and something else, let's see. Today, formatted as long date. So today is a public variable inside of a footer. You see today. This is how to declare type. You already know how to declare type string. This is type date. JavaScript type date. Since it is public, it is available inside of template, but before you show it, you need to assign it. I could say new date in this line, it will work just fine, but I decided to use constructor. Yeah, we can initialize stuff inside of constructor as well, right? So I assign it new date, and when we create object date, it will be current date and time. In some nasty form, right? Current date, if you try to print it, it will be blah, 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 quite long. So this is why formatting helps. In footer HTML, this part is expression that is inserted into the page, right? And this expression contains pipe. So today is fed as the input of a pipe, and pipe has parameter long date, so output will be string formatted as long date to make it prettier. So if we run it, we will see that at the bottom it will be applied computing, heart symbol, and date formatted as long date. So it's starting. Let's wait and see what kind of how footer looks like. Oh, it is compiled. Here it is. Applied computer, heart symbol, long date. And if there is a long date, obviously it should be short date, right? So let's try short. Here it is short, not as pretty. So let's change it back to long. Okay? So this is short date. Long. So it is 24, 23, right? So let's continue looking at the logic of the program. I'm going back to app component HTML. This is how to pass string. But what if it is not a string, but it is variable containing string? If you put variable name like this, it will understand it as a string. It will not understand magically that it's variable name. So we need to use slightly different syntax if you pass expression or variable name. So here it is. So if you want this part to be evaluated, for example, if it is variable name, you want to replace it with value of a variable, or you need to do some calculation, you assign it not to tag name or property or variable. You assign it with this attribute squared, okay? So squares around attribute means evaluate this value. If you remove these squares, it will take this image source as literally string containing image source. Okay, like these letters, not actual source. Okay, questions? The same about alt, right? It means this is expression to be evaluated. Card is the public variable inside of component. Card.name is a value inside of card object. Name of the card. So the name of the card will be inserted as alt for the image. Okay. So this is the meaning of square brackets. So when we don't have a square brackets, what we assign is taken as a string literally. If we have a square brackets around variable or property, this is evaluated. It's taken as expression, it's evaluated. So if we need to insert something as a body of a tag, in this case body of the tag, we use curly braces as before, and card it's an object inside, it's an object in component, it's a public instance variable inside of an object. A component dot name, it's a string value or name of the card. So it shows up here, you see? Span card, in this case, card name is defining CSS to make a color. So this is coming from CSS. So I define a class card name inside of app component. Card name to make it orange, to make it slightly bold and slightly larger. Slightly bold and slightly larger. Okay. Going back to HTML. So this is how card name is inserted. This title is inserted the same way as usual, as before. And what is this? If you use parentheses around something in a tag or in a button, whatever, it is event. Okay? So when we assign some string to event, it will make event handler. In this case, given next, it's also expression. It's a method call of a given class. So class, what we have inside of app component, contains a method next that will be called when I click on this link. Okay. So when I click next card, it will execute method next public by default, and it will replace information about card. All right? So this is behavior of the screen. Now let's look at the behavior of the code, because I didn't explain code. I only explained how code is linked to the screen. Any questions about how code is linked to the screen for now? No? Now let's look at the code. This code contains additional classes, card and card factory. How I did card and card factory? The same as before, I use a generate. So I went to terminal and I type it. ng space generate space class space card. Press enter. And it created me export class card. And it was empty with constructor in it. So I use this card as just data transfer object. So as you already saw, I'm referring to name, and also number is used to display image, but it's not used inside of HTML. It uses it in the code. Face and suit is kind of extra, it's not used in the code, but I decided to put it in the card, just for illustration. You probably realized that for face and suit, it's better to use the enumeration type, but I decided to keep it simple. I keep it as a string. Okay. So I define a data transfer class for data transfer objects, card, that contains number type number, face type string, suit type string, and name type string. I also defined instance method copy that takes card and copies content of this object into current object. This is how to define return value of a method. In this case, it is void. By default, it's not returning anything. If you don't say colon void, it will be just fine. But if you say it, it is explicitly telling that it's not returning anything. So please notice that when you use instance variable of a class, you really have to prefix it with this. It is like in JavaScript. Other languages are easier in this sense. You have to use this only if not using it will cause ambiguity. In JavaScript, TypeScript, when you refer to instance variables of a class, you really have to prefix it with this. So what does this method do? It takes values from the given card and copies this into current card. Right. Next. This is exported and it is used in two other places. So, for example, it is used in my app component. App component, yes. So in order to use card class, I had to import it. Luckily, IDE helps you to import it. Use type card, it will underline it in red, and you press Alt-Enter, it will import it. As usual, like we do it in Spring Boot. What about card factory? In my case, card, it is just data transfer object. But I need to populate it with random data, like Queen of Hearts and whatever, Ace of Spades, whatever, right? So something should generate this random data. So this is what factory is doing. So I created class, ng generate class cards dash factory, and I ended up with this one, card factory.ts. I had to import card because card is used inside. Export class because I want to use it outside of the file. And then I need some arrays, spades, hearts, diamonds, clubs, because I will generate random output based on the data. And the same as this. Faces for ace, two, blah, blah, blah. But somehow I need generated data to match images, because if I just run random number generation on this 4 and random number generation on this 13, it is not easy to pick correct image. Unless I name it this way, right? Otherwise, it's not. But in this case, it's already numbered, so I decided, okay, let's do challenge. Let's generate name so it will match the image. So it was kind of 20 minutes brain exercise, how to generate names that match the images. So I decided that, okay, I want to make a name that corresponds the number, okay? So I did it reverse engineering. And it definitely works only for this numbering of the cards. If you number cards differently, it won't work. So what did I do? I created new card, and number, it will be index give +1, and index starts from 0 up to 52, +1. Okay. Then, since these arrays are static, in TypeScript, I have to prefix it with class name dot. In other languages, you have to use class name dot outside of a class. But in TypeScript and JavaScript, you really have to use class name dot even inside of class. So this is where TypeScript is kind of tedious. Okay. So for the faces, I use remainder of the division by 13, and it will be correct face. So this is how they arranged images to number. And for suit, it will be division by 13, and floor means remove fractional part. So fractional part will be removed. So it is integer part of division. It happened to be correct, so it was just like a guess, essentially, to match names to images. And name, I'm using template. Template in JavaScript is back inside of back quotes. So it is easiest way to build a string is to use template. And this way you can insert expressions using $sign and curly braces. So it is face, space off, space suit. Okay. So this will make a card based on index. So it is not random. It is you give a number, you get a card. How to make it random? You run random number generation for index. Right? So a random card is returning card. So this is how to specify return type. But please notice there is a space between get and random card. It's not one word, get random card. If you type get random card, it will also work. It will be method that is returning card. If you have a space between get and name of a method, it makes a property read-only property. So if you declare also set space something, it will be reading and writing also. So just because I have a space here, I created property random card that I can access with dot. So if I have a card factory object, like name it factory, and I call dot random card without parentheses, it will provide me random card each time. All right. So let's look at the illustration of it. I'm going to components. I'm going to app component CS. So I created object card factory, and when I call card factory dot random card without parentheses, I'm accessing property that will give me random card each time when I access it. So it's a demo of properties in TypeScript. In this case, it's a read-only property because there is no setter. Okay, questions?
What does preload do again?
I will explain it later. Okay, it's a coming. It's a trick. Okay, so I'm going back to random card factory, and this is generating between 0 and 52, and now it is make random card, returning card. Okay, and this is last piece in factory. Going back to component TS, app component TS. So let's start from the top. So it is name of the component, right? HTML, CSS, clear. It's a name. It's a title. This card is mentioned in the layout, right? So when this variable is changing, layout is updated automatically. This is how Angular behaves. You edit public instance variables of a class associated with layout. Layout is updated. Image source is also mentioned in layout. You see, image source. So when you assign different location of an image, it will be different image. So this is how it behaves. I update image source inside of my class, and browser will replace image. Okay, this is a trick, how to replace image. Update image source, this variable inside of my class. So going back to component class. So it is this one. Then card factory is used to generate random class. And next card is private. Obviously, it is card factory shouldn't be visible inside of template. There is no place for it in template, right? What about next card? It is showing current card, but not next card. This is why next card is private. Why do I need next card in general? To preload image ahead of the time. Because images lives on server, but your JavaScript in your browser. If you click next, and image is not preloaded, browser will create a request to the server to get image, and image is transferred back to you. After this, it is shown. So it is traffic of images across, across network, and that could create a delay, and it will create flickering in the screen. In order to avoid flickering, I'm displaying current card and I'm preloading image for next card when first card is displayed. So we don't need to wait for another card when I click on next. So this is the information about next card. And this is actual image. Because when you preload image, you need to preload it somewhere. So this is actual image. In HTML image element. Next, constructor is initialization of given object, right? So current card, it's random card, initialize it. Image source, it is for the current card. I'm calling static method of given class, card image source. Just because it's static, I have to prefix it with class name. And based on the name, based on the number inside of the class, I'm generating image source. Assets, images, cards, number dot ping. Assets, images, cards, number dot ping. Okay. So this is image source. And so when page is created, I'm immediately creating new next random card ahead of the time. And I'm preloading image for that. So this is next card. I'm creating image object because we need to preload it somewhere. Then I'm calling preload, which is assigning source property of the image object based on the number in the next card. Assigning source property of image object causing browser to send requests for the image. So this is actually doing preloading. Assigning source property of image object is causing browser to send request for image. So next image will be available inside of the browser ahead of the time. So preload. Next, image is shown. I need to make next walk, right? So next method is linked to a tag click event. So click event on a tag is executing next. All right. So let's go and see what it is doing here. I'm copying next card into current card. So this will replace card's name on the screen, but it will not replace card image. Because card image, it is an image source, not in a card. So I'm replacing image source, right, by generating image source based on current number, card number. So this will replace image on the screen because I'm replacing image source. I'm creating next card to preload it ahead of the time. So for next click, image will be already available in the browser without flickering delay. Okay, questions? That's it.